Hello viewers, welcome to the Cross Motor channel. Recently, I pondered a question and decided it was crucial to explore and address this topic in a dedicated segment. So here's the question itself. Why aren't there motorcycles with a continuously variable transmission? The continuously variable transmission system, also known as the continuously variable transmission, has worked great on scooters, snowmobiles, ATVs, and some cars. But there are critically few motorcycles that use this technology. Let's figure everything out now. Enjoy watching. At the very beginning, a bit of dry theory. What is a variator? A variator, or continuously variable transmission, literally means a continuously variable transmission. This is a type of automatic transmission that provides the transfer of torque from the internal combustion engine to the wheels while maintaining stable engine speed. Unlike its counterparts, it operates steplessly. There is no actual gear shifting, and the gear ratio is adjusted as smoothly as possible depending on acceleration or deceleration of the vehicle. It is also necessary to mention the following point. What is the main difference between a scooter and a motorcycle? The key difference is not in engine size, power, or dimensions. On a scooter, the rider's legs don't control the vehicle, unlike on a motorcycle. Why is a transmission necessary at all? The reason is the internal combustion engine, or more precisely, its imperfections. Usually, when you are interested in the specifications of a particular engine, you find out its maximum power and maximum torque, and at what crankshaft revolutions per minute these figures are achieved. To learn a bit more about the character of the engine, you will need a power and torque diagram depending on the revolutions per minute. Every internal combustion engine has a working revolutions per minute range. In this range, the engine produces the most torque, which is exactly what we need for movement. And in order for the vehicle to be able to start moving from a standstill and drive slowly and at the same time accelerate to high speeds and maintain them for a long time, a transmission is needed. If we take a classic gearbox, then for an engine with a sufficiently wide torque curve, several gears are enough, 4, 5, or 6. Theoretically, if the engine produced high torque from 0 revolutions per minute all the way to maximum revolutions per minute, then you wouldn't need a transmission at all, would you? An electric motor can be considered to have such characteristics. Let's get back to the continuously variable transmission. In a continuously variable transmission, generally, there are 2 pulleys and a belt connecting them. The pulleys are designed so that they can expand, causing the belt to sink inward, or contract, pushing the belt outward. Accordingly, as the speed increases, the drive pulley contracts and pushes the belt to a larger diameter, while the driven pulley expands and the belt sinks to a smaller diameter. The gear ratio, which is the ratio of the diameters of the driven to the drive pulleys, decreases. This mechanism is controlled in the simplest case by centrifugal weights rollers, and in more expensive systems by mechatronics. As a result, the output torque of the Variator changes continuously. Variators are now standard on scooters. Because the philosophy of this type of transport is maximum simplicity of control, the Variator fits perfectly into this concept. At the same time, it allows the potential of small displacement engines to be realized very well, making them operate in a fairly narrow range of optimal revolutions. So what prevents installing a Variator on motorcycles? There are multiple challenges. As torque transmission rises, the already substantial size and weight of the continuously variable transmission mechanism further increases. And as you know, motorcycles are all about fighting for every kilogram. Here's an example for you. Maxi scooter BMW C 714 yards T. Here, the continuously variable transmission has grown to monstrous proportions in order to transmit 63 Nm of torque and 60 horsepower from the engine. The second, no less important reason is the efficiency of such a transmission, which is 80 to 90%. The main culprit of the loss is the friction between the pulleys and the belt. For comparison, a conventional gear transmission has an efficiency of about 98 to 99%. What does that mean? That's right, in a manual transmission, out of 100 kilowatts of power, only 1 or 2 are lost. In a continuously variable transmission, it's from 10 to 20. So where does all that power go? Yes, a powerful scooter turns into a fairly good heater, as the energy is converted to heat. You can pause the video and calculate how many square meters of space you could heat, for example, with that same BMW C 714 yards T. Moreover, variators are heavier, larger, costlier to produce and maintain compared to traditional gearboxes. And finally, motorcycling itself, the motorcycle movement if you will. All of this over a century and a half has become steeped in a number of traditions. It's an entire cult, and motorcyclists often react negatively to radical changes. Because of this and the other reasons mentioned, the manual transmission remains the most sought after on motorcycles. Be a man, ride a manual. The situation with snowmobiles and ATVs is somewhat different. Look, first of all, they're convenient. There's no need to control which gear you're in when you're off-roading, to shift and so on. Secondly, snowmobiles and ATVs have more space than motorcycles, making it easier to fit a continuously variable transmission inside. And finally, first of all, there are no problems with cooling. Not at all. At the end of the video, let's find out whether motorcycles with CVTs ever existed. And let's start in chronological order. For the first time, a continuously variable transmission was used on a motorcycle in 1911 on this beautiful 6-horsepower model, Zenith Gradua. The driving force behind the Zenith company was the chief engineer and owner, Frederick Barnes, who was responsible for developing the famous Gradua transmission. By moving the lever, you could shift the axis of the swing arm to achieve the desired position of the belt on the drive pulley. The advantage of this solution on the Zenith Gradua was most effective during high-speed hill climbs. Before World War I, Zenith technology saw immense success. Since the rider could adjust the gear ratios during the climb, rival riders and manufacturers considered this an unfair advantage, so sanctions followed. In many subsequent races, they were not allowed to participate. By the 1920s, the expensive transmission gave way to a more traditional and cheaper gearbox. In 1912, a British company created a motorcycle. The distinctive feature of the machine was a Variator, patented by the company in 1910. It included variable pulleys on the engine shaft and the rear wheel. One expands while the other contracts, which allows for a gradual change in the gear ratio from the engine to the rear wheel. It was the first motorcycle to break the 60 mph speed barrier. And in 1914, Cyril Poulin won the Tourist Trophy Isle of Man race on... In 1923, production of this machine was discontinued. They forgot about variators on motorcycles for a long time, until 1997. It was in that year that Clay Ridley founded his motorcycle company. Back in the early 90s, Clay became interested in automatic transmissions. In 1999, he released his first model to the market under the name... It was a small lightweight motorcycle in the cruiser style. The model was equipped with a 570cc V-twin engine that produced 33 horsepower. That power was enough to accelerate the small machine to a top speed of 160 km per hour. The main feature of the first and all subsequent models was the automatic transmission, motorcycles. Ridley can be called the Harley for girls. If Harley-Davidson is a machine for tough guys with facial hair, then Ridley is the complete opposite. Why should a lady have to deal with how the clutch works and shifting gears? After all, there are nails, eyelashes, and a motorcycle. Ridley 2006 is in the name of one of the models. Clay Ridley used the word autoglide, and soon after he was sued by Harley-Davidson. Ridley settled the case on December 28, 2009 after 3 years of waiting without a verdict, and the next day Ridley filed for bankruptcy. I have a separate episode about the history of these motorcycles on my channel. Next on our list is the 850, which borrowed the engine and continuously variable transmission from its ancestor, the Scooter 800, and appeared in 2006. The engine of this one can boast 7.16 horsepower and 7.13 Nm of torque. At the same time, about 55 horses actually reach the rear wheel. Owners of the 850 note that the machine heats up quite a lot. And finally, the N01. This was first presented in 2005 at an exhibition, and since 2008 it has been on sale. The feature of these models is the hydraulic continuously variable transmission. The system of this transmission with electronic control is different from the more familiar belt-driven continuously variable transmission systems used on scooters. So basically, these are all the motorcycles with a continuously variable transmission. The technology is great and has a number of applications, but it doesn't belong on a motorcycle. At this point, my story is coming to an end. As always, you can support my work with a like, a repost, and a comment, or with a donation using the details pinned in the description. As always, this was the Cross Moto channel. See you next time.